Hey friends, cozy weather continues. Yeah, rain. It's what we do up here in the Northwest. So I'm thinking soup. I mentioned last week that I was gonna try a soup. I don't know if I said what I was gonna do, but this week I'm doing beef barley soup. So you guys, this is just hearty and cozy. It involves, there's a variety of cuts of beef you can use. I used what they had at the grocery store. They had some pre-chopped up sirloin tips, which is a little bit highbrow. You can do like a chuck roast and just kind of trim off the fat and cut it up into the right size. And then vegetables, some beef broth. It's a pretty simple soup, but there are some tips that I want to pass along with just some of the steps in the process of making the soup. If you dump everything in a soup all at once, do you think it's going to taste the same as if you build the layers? Kind of like, I made that obvious, but no, it's not. So there's a reason why you go to some restaurants and you can have their vegetable noodle soup and it tastes one way, and go another place and it tastes completely different and way better. There's definitely things and tricks that you can know about methods of making the soup. So I'm excited to show you this one, something cozy and hearty for our January. All right. Hi friends. Okay, I told you that there was different tips that I wanted to give you for making just soups that are elevated ever so slightly, but little things that you might not know that make things just taste better, building flavors. So I've got my pot. It's been heating for a bit. I've already added some vegetable oil in there. It's about a tablespoon and a half. First tip, don't crowd the pan. As you add your meat, you want to brown this meat. Hear a sizzle. It means it's ready. So I'm putting these down and kind of flattening them out, not just dumping it in, because I want to be able to get each side and kind of sear the meat off. And then I will do the second package of meat after this one gets browned. You're not cooking it all the way through. You're just getting a nice sear to the meat. So I'm putting it in my pan and I'm kind of pressing it down. We're just kind of trying to build a little bit of flavor here. It's going to offer some little brown bits in the bottom of the pan, and just add a lot of flavor in your pan, so when you add your vegetables, it's all kind of working together. Okay, I'm not very good at the one-handed film and demo here, but I wanted to show you. So I did my first batch. Pan wasn't hot enough, and so if your meat browns, but you're not, see, I got a few of these guys with some of that GBD, Golden Brown Delicious sear on them, but my pan was not quite hot enough, so I turned it up. It's almost on high. Added just a touch more oil. I'm doing batch number 2, but look, already. Also, one other thing, if you go to move a piece of meat and it's sticking and won't lift, it's not ready. So don't force it, but look at that. Look at that guy already. He's got some of the GBD going on. So that's what you're looking for. If I dumped all my meat in at the same time, it would have steamed and I wouldn't have gotten any of that. The reason why you want that is it is a flavor, it's called the Maillard reaction, but it's a flavor builder. So all that brown bits get left in the bottom of this pot, and then when I add my veggies, it's gonna just pick up all that flavor, and that's what gives your soup the depth you want. All right, it's still sizzling, it is hot, but in goes celery, carrot, and onion. And now all of that, gotta get my tool. There's Tucker. Tucker, say hi. Aw, Tuck. He's the best. Oops, I grabbed the wrong thing. Trying to keep it on the soup. Move out, dude. He's like, there's beef. So now, you guys, as I let this get sauteed, it's going to pick up all the delicious brown bits in the bottom of that pan, and that is just chock full of flavor. And I very lightly salted and peppered my steak, because there's going to be a lot of salt going in with the broth and whatnot, so don't want to have an overly salty soup. But this in the bottom, just scraping up all those yummy bits, because there's all the moisture in the veggies. So this is going to go for a little while, and then we'll be on to the next step. Okay, my veggies have been going for about 5 minutes. I want them to go for a little bit longer. This just, again, helps develop flavor. So one thing I did not say, when the meat, sorry, I'm in the steam trough. When you put the meat into brown, don't move it. put it in and don't touch it until it's loose enough to be flipped. That's how it starts to brown. I watch people all the time when they're cooking, messing around with the food, constantly stirring. Leave it alone. Unless you're making something like, to me, scrambled eggs, I always am keeping them moving. I want them nice and soft. That's how I like mine. But with the veggies, leave them alone. I'm like, have them in here, leave them alone. Also, this dish has garlic, but I'm not adding the garlic right when I add the mirepoix, the celery, carrot, onion, because I don't want my garlic to burn. And this is still at a pretty, medium-high heat. So it's been in there for almost 5 minutes. I'm gonna do my garlic now. Calls for 4 cloves. My cloves were a little larger than average, so I'm doing 3. So that's where, as a cook, it's important to be thinking about, just because it says 4, does it look like an average size clove? Does it seem way smaller, way larger? Recipes are oftentimes there for guidance, but they're also, especially with cooking versus baking, they're also a bit more suggestive of, here's what you do, but nothing's gonna, not turn out just because you add a little bit more or a little bit less garlic. But I want to do 4, but they were, again, like I said, huge, so I'm doing 3. So that's gonna go in. The other thing that's gonna go in after this is tomato paste. And the tomato paste, some people think, oh, add that when it's the liquid. I actually want to add it to the vegetables and let it cook with the vegetables. The reason why is when I was in cooking school, I learned about, it's a terminology, I think it's called pincé, but it had to do with when you were making like really, really good beef stock or veal stock, and they would have us roast the bones and vegetables, and then you'd spread tomato paste all over them and put them back in a really hot oven, and it would almost kind of like burn the tomato sauce, but it was one of the things that gave depth of flavor. So I love these little tubes of tomato paste. Oftentimes they're just asking you to do a couple tablespoons, which is what this is. So I'm squeezing in approximately 2 tablespoons. Doesn't have to be exact. And I'm going to add or mix that in and then just let that hang out for a few minutes. It's just going to cook that tomato paste a little more, offer a little more depth of flavor. So this is what I'm referring to with the layers. I think that is one of the easiest things that people miss when trying to make really tasty food is if you're in a real big hurry, you're not letting flavors kind of develop, so it's good to let it take a little time. Maybe this is going to be a Sunday soup for you, something you'd make on a weekend when you have a little more time. I don't think it takes too much time. Probably all in all for me, it'll be maybe a half an hour, and then it just hangs out for an hour to maybe 2 hours. You also could do this in a slow cooker or an Instapot. I'm not an Instapot expert, I don't have one, but follow guidelines for making other soups in an Instapot, and you'd probably be pretty close with that. With a slow cooker, brown your meat. I would still do my veggies, and then at this point you could take all of it and dump it into your slow cooker with your broth and your barley. There's a few other ingredients that are going to be hopping in here in just a minute. So let this go a few minutes and then I'll be back. Okay, final steps. So I let my tomato paste with the veggies and garlic hang out, and it's now all like golden brown delicious. It's another layer of flavor. So that tomato paste kind of cooked onto the bottom, but that's okay. It's going to be just a richer flavor. Okay, so didn't buy the low sodium beef broth. I just used what I had, and it wasn't low sodium, unfortunately. I thought I bought that kind, but I didn't. So you're gonna hear a big which will then scrape up all the goodies. Well, not as loud as I thought, but so 1 entire box, 32 ounces or 4 cups is going in here. And because it's one salty, I'm adjusting because it called for 6 cups but of low sodium beef broth. So I'm going to do a couple cups of water. And for depth of flavor, the recipe wants you to do a couple teaspoons of Better Than Bouillon. It is optional, but this is a really concentrated beef flavoring. You could also maybe do a cube, but you want to be careful with the salt. This stuff's real salty, so I'm doing a little less than what they would recommend for the recipe, even though I added the water, because I can always add some salt at the end if it needs it. I just don't want it to be overly salty. So that's going in. thyme. I have some fresh thyme still growing from the summer, and I tied it up because I happen to have some kitchen string, but that way I don't have to fish out all the little pieces. And then I have 2 bay leaves. These are dry. Those are going in. It also calls for a little bit of Worcestershire, a couple teaspoons of that going in. It'd be fun to hear a debate on how you say it. I think it's Worcestershire. W-R-C-E, that's worse. And then stir, shire. That's my, I think, final answer on that one. Okay, so that's all going in. And then the beef, which you gotta be careful so you don't splatter everywhere. Don't do it toward you. Get it as low as you can. And any juices, that's all gonna go back in. Oh gosh, you guys, this already looks so good. And then the barley. So Ina, the queen, she does her barley on the side and then adds it in later. The reason why she said is because it'll make your soup a little cloudy, and she wanted a real clear broth. I'm not concerned about that, so I'm actually gonna have my pearl barley be cooked. Forgot to open it up, but I can do that in just a jiff. So it calls for 2/3 a cup, and not sure if I want more or less, but I might write a little addendum in my notes about whether I think you should add a little bit more after I've eaten the soup. Interesting. I just saw a tiny baby dried pea. Okay. Those real clean manufacturing places. So 2/3 cup is gonna go in here. Now you guys, I'm bringing it up to a boil, and then I will cover it and let it and turn it down to a simmer. So that's on my thing, like medium low toward low, and let this just go. So now it's kind of like you do all the work, clean up dishes, and then you get to eat delicious soup without, you know, everything being like messy right at the time. So this is a good time for doing dishes. This looks so good. Already smells, oh my gosh, it smells incredible. So I'll see y'all in a little while, okay? That was a long hour and a half, but I did my dishes, unloaded my dishwasher, did more dishes, and watched a little news, and dinner is served. I'm so excited. You guys, it smells like a beefy, yummy, unctuous hug in here. It's so tasty. I'm so excited about this. Okay, I wanted to point out one thing before I do a taste. Remember last week I did my New Year's cheese? Well, here it is on just a piece of sandwich bread. Put it in the oven, turn the broiler on. So I've got my yummy soup. I got a little quarter of a Korean pear. Those are really good if you haven't tried those. And my soup, I zhuzhed it up with just a little bit of fresh parsley for some fresh herbiness. I love the way that adds not only color, but flavor. So I already did a little pre-taste so I could know what was going on. If I needed to salt it or pepper it, it was perfect. I did not show, by the way, that I added pepper, because I always forget that part for some reason, sorry. But I did add about a half teaspoon of fresh cracked pepper into the soup, and then just let it go. Before serving, always make sure you fish out your bay leaves and those thyme sprigs, which is so nice when you tie them together. The little bitty light leaves will fall off, but then you don't have to go around getting the stems out when you tie them together. That's another good reason to do that. All right, here we go. Soup's on. Oh yeah. This is a soup that eats like a meal. Wow, that's so good. The flavor is balanced. It's beefy flavored. It's not too salty, which I'm really glad that I paid attention to the beef stock that I was using, that I didn't buy low sodium, but then I adjusted with water and a little bit of the better than bouillon, but not too much because it's also very salty. And the vegetables are nice and tender. Oh yeah, carrots are super soft. The barley is super like bloomed, so it's not like chewy or crunchy. It's just like really soft and tender. That's a nice texture. And then the beef is real tender, fall apart. So all around, just a winner. I mean, we're gonna eat this for days and I'm not gonna be sad about it. So beef barley soup, I highly suggest giving it a try. If you've never made this soup, do it. There's a little bit of work, if you will, in building the flavors. if you're taking all my suggestions, but it really is worth it, and it feels like it's that kind of work on the front. Then you leave it alone and you just get to like do whatever you need to do around the house or whatever, and then it comes out and it's just perfection in my opinion. So good. All right, delight of the bite. Subscribe and share and tell your friends. Let people know I'm here, what I'm doing. If you're not watching me on Instagram, I'm at Delight of the Bite, and I post stories and random things here and there about food. And as always, just really appreciate you tuning in. So thank you so much. Until next time, bye-bye.